All right, James Benefico, founder of Organic Muscle, my friend, my fellow entrepreneur, my lover of all things health and wellness. How are you, my man?
I'm doing amazing. It's great to be here. Thanks, Jason.
Well, it's so good to have you back on the show. Of course, now, I'm going to launch this on the Healthy CEO podcast. And I have ventured into the nutraceutical space myself. This show is to support Authentic Health Partners, which is we're actually creating our own formulations of supplements with my co-founder and dear friend, Dr. Gus Vickery and Troy Jackson, and then my buddy, James Quandall, who you know.
I know James, of course.
Yeah. So, what I want to bring you on today to talk about was one, just to catch up with you. It's been way too long, man, since we talked. And then two, I wanted to talk about Bobby Kennedy. And I know that you were very instrumental and got very involved in his campaign. And for a lot of the reasons why I think he could have an incredibly profound and positive impact on the state of health in our country. So what I want to do is just kind of start there with one, how did Bobby Kennedy Jr. get on your radar, and what made you decide to get behind him as a presidential candidate?
So it was a very improbable and unexpected journey with Bobby. And like many people, he just started showing up on my feed, and I was listening to the words he was speaking, and I was just blown away. I never thought in a million years that we'd have a political candidate talking about these issues that I find so near and dear to my heart, namely health. But more importantly, he was talking about spirituality in a way that I'd never heard a candidate talk about. And for me, the reason why I'm so invested in health is because of my faith in God. And I believe God gives all of us a mission on this world. And we can't do that mission if we're sick, if we're unhealthy. And I believe a lot of this stuff happening in the world with the toxic food supply is actually cutting us off from our source. And that's the greatest travesty of all. So he was talking about spirituality and health in a way that really resonated. And to me, that's the core issue in the world right now. It's when we're cut off from God, when we're cut off from morality. And a lot of that happens because our minds are so clouded, our bodies are sick. And it's, to me, you need to get to the root problem. Like all of these other Democrat, Republican issues are kind of skirting around the main issue of we need to be moral people, love God, love your neighbor, treat other people with kindness and respect, and then health. If we fix those issues, if we fix our mentality, our morality, and our health, I think everything else falls into place. So it's just so refreshing to hear someone talking about this. And I was on board. So yeah, through a few miraculous events, we were able to host an event with him and become friends with him. We could get into that more.
Dude, okay. Well, first of all, and by the way, for the listener, this was not planned. I mean, you hit so many things that just make me light up inside, brother, in that comment, because I fully 100% agree with every single thing you said. All right, so let's just start with back to, and this is not to be a promotion for Authentic Health. I'd much rather talk about Organic Muscle, your company, but Authentic Health, my co-founder, Dr. Gus Vickery, that's the name of his clinic is Authentic Health. And the reason why is because he tries to help people heal and be well according to their design, the way they were designed at the cellular level. And he has a firm belief in health being exactly what you said. It's more than just diagnose and prescribe. It is managing our bodies based on how they were designed. So first and foremost, whenever you talk about those sorts of things and the spiritual component to it, that really resonates with me. Secondly, not only am I in the health and wellness space because one, I want to live as healthy as long as I can and help other people do that. But what you said is exactly right. I do believe the healthier and more full of joy we are, the better the world becomes. And right now it seems in so many areas, in morals, in health, and just public discourse, we are moving so far away from anything that makes sense in that regard that it's like somebody needs to step in and say, hey guys, instead of letting the politicians and the media drive these couple of ridiculously wedged issues, why don't we focus on something that impacts all of us, which is our health and wellness?
And nutrition.
Nutri-
Yeah. Everyone eats. Everyone eats. We could all benefit from clean food that isn't poisonous.
Exactly. And how this has not been a topic, like we will go after, we'll go after smoking, we'll go after all these other things. But if the right industry is aligned with the right pocketbook to get the right person elected, then we'll just kind of gloss over and ignore some of the legal poisons that are filling our grocery shelves, that we're putting in our kids' bodies. And we act as though the epidemic of type 2 diabetes, obesity, uh, you know, all these other things that we see in the space of, especially in America, our downward spiral in health. We just think, oh well, how's that happening? We don't understand. No, we do know. And to have somebody take the national stage like Bobby did and bring this to the forefront, I think is so very important.
It is, and he's incredibly brave because he's dealing with institutions and corporations that don't exactly have a moral compass, and I don't think they really have a problem eliminating threats to their bottom line. So he's incredibly courageous, and I really look up to him. And when I hung out with him, man, I was just blown away by what a sincere, kind, and compassionate individual he was. Like, looks you on the eye, remembers your name, and is just so. He drank organic muscle with me, and it was like a dream come true. But I was just struck. I've met politicians before, and I've met famous people before, and like not to get woo woo, but you can kind of feel people's vibes, and some of them have dark vibes. His vibe was so good, and so he's just you could tell he's got so much love in his heart for humanity, and he really genuinely wants to help. I've met some other politicians where it felt like they were there for different reasons. I'll just put it that way.
100%. And here's the thing too that I love about where Kennedy falls into the national landscape at this point is that he's proven that it's not always about freaking ideology. You know, if you listen to Jordan Peterson or people like Jordan, they talk about, ideology is what causes wars and what causes people to hate one another. It's ideology that rips us apart. It's ideology that blinds us to truth because it pushes us to one tribe or the other. Whereas it's not really ideological to say, hey, we shouldn't put these poisonous dyes and these hyper processed foods in our bodies in just unregulated quantities. We see the impact, and it does have a national impact on our healthcare system. And so there's really nothing ideological. Now, granted, I mean, we know that Bobby Kennedy's an old school Democrat, for crying out loud. He comes from a Democrat royal family, but that
Yeah.
was really not the crux of or the foundation of his campaign. And also to the listener, this isn't to try to, dwell on, this isn't a political show. That's not it. What I really wanted to do was just say, hey, while we've got this moment in time where a national figure like Bobby Kennedy has brought some of these topics up, and by the way, it's been able to give guys like you and I, and especially voices way bigger than mine, a platform on the national stage to say, hey, yeah, all this stuff that we talk about in our quote unquote niche on podcasts and YouTube and that sort of thing, you guys should be listening to it. It's not just bro science. It's not just guys that are, jamming out to Peter Attia and Ben Greenfield and Lane Norton and guys like that trying to get jacked and all this and kind of geek out on this stuff. No, it's because it works. And like when you were talking about nutrition, which is so important, as we're kind of alluding to now, physicians in Western medicine, I think Gus, my business partner, I said, I think when he was in medical school, they maybe had like the equivalent of half a semester of nutrition. It was so sparse that it really blows your mind how little and again, it's not to knock the doctors. They're practicing medicine the way they were trained, but
Yeah.
how little knowledge they have on the sort of things that you and I kind of take for granted.
Oh yeah, it just shows how upside down the whole system is. I mean, I've told the story many times before, but when my mom was getting chemo and radiation in the hospital, they were just feeding her soda and hot dogs, and I brought it up to her oncologist, and he laughed at me and said that nutrition doesn't matter. So these guys are, it's part of the culture and it's part of how, their education, but I think it's changing now. And the cool thing is the culture's changing. So now it's cool to be a doctor who actually talks about nutrition and is against the status quo. It's cool. Like you're a loser if you just play ball with these institutions. You suck.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a good thing. It's a good thing that the culture has shifted, and it's these podcasts and it's, people like you and me making a small difference, but it aggregates, it combines forces. It's a snowball effect. So I think it's a very positive thing that our culture is shifting.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that, like you said earlier, not to be too woo woo, but I think that was the problem for so long. It's like anything that contradicted just standard Western medicine, you were considered crunchy and granola and a
Yeah.
little woo woo. You probably had a bunch of essential oils and didn't wear deodorant and you were kind of a weirdo. At least it's the
Yeah.
kind of the picture that got painted. But now you've got people waking up to the fact that, and the cool thing is, man, like I just had a buddy of mine, a dear friend. He called me this week and he said that he'd been to his physician and he's younger than me. I'm 49. I think he's somewhere around 42, 43. And his physician was recommending testosterone replacement. And that's and so and not to knock it, that's the thing. I'm not anti-testosterone replacement, but I do caution, as I did him, people that started at too young of an age. My buddy Joel Green, who wrote the immunity code, he's the one that kind of really alerted me to this. He's like, look, I'm not fundamentally opposed to testosterone replacement. However, I think you should push it off as long as possible. And
Mhm.
so I think that whenever you figure out, and if you're going to do that, then there are some natural things you can do to increase
Yeah.
your testosterone. You can do things like, I mean, from physical activities like heavy squats, deadlifts, to, certain supplementation that you might want to try. But there's so many things you can do
Oh
before
yeah.
going and getting shots or pellets or creams under your arm and that sort of thing. Again, I'm not saying those things are bad, and that I'm not saying that whenever I turn 60 and my body decides, look, just you can do all you want, but you're at an age where you can't produce the testosterone you need for your lifestyle, that I won't go that route. But I'll tell you this, I'm going to put it off as long as I possibly can, because there are
Yeah.
so many natural remedies to a lot of the things that quote unquote ail us.
100%. If there's one thing I've learned in life, there's no free lunch.
Exactly.
Like, I think people underestimate the effects that even TRT will have long term. I mean, I am a complete believer in freedom of choice and people can do what they believe is best. And I believe there is a clinical application for a percentage of the population. I just think it's very overused in that the other options aren't, there's so much you can do. Like my tea is almost 1,100% natural, just from a clean diet and good sleep and not watching porn and taking Tonkat and some herbs and eating organic food. I understand some people have a genetic proclivity to have lower T, but I've seen miraculous things when people set the intention and just clean up their. Honestly, the biggest thing is not drinking alcohol.
Yep.
Yeah,
100%, 100%.
if you can, if you do tea and drink alcohol, I will not take you seriously because you wouldn't make that sacrifice to give up alcohol. Um, I mean that alone can work wonders for your T levels. So yeah, but I don't hate. I mean, RFK does tea, and he's one of the greatest men I've ever met.
He's 70
So
years
it's
old, right?
so yeah,
I mean, come on. That's what I'm saying. The dude is
yeah,
70 years old and he's still eating clean. He is exercising, he's physical. He is doing all the natural things possible.
yeah.
And the dude is 70. Hey, I'm not I'm not going to bash somebody that's 70 years
I'll
old.
never bash that or judge that. Yeah, I might be do the same thing when I'm that age.
Yeah.
And it kind of gives you a second life when you're older. It's really incredible. But like, I really am a strong critic of the steroid culture, especially for young
Mhm.
people. I think it's anti-health. I think it's Um, I think there's a lot of influencers who are really bad influence on. It's funny, influencer. They're influencing young kids, teenagers, to do steroids.
Yep.
And like I had a good friend of mine did steroids, and he afterwards he couldn't get an erection for almost 2 years, and it caused him to be almost suicidal. So these have I've th- this is destroying people's lives. I mean, if you're a young guy and you're struggling in that department, that's like has an extreme effect on mental health, you know? Because half these guys are doing testosterone so they could get girls, and then they shot themselves in the foot figuratively.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think that, that's a topic we could just go down the rabbit hole on whenever a lot of people that have either never experienced it, or maybe you're a woman and you don't know just how it will jack with a man's head whenever you can't get an erection. It is, and it comes on because of high stress, lifestyle, all these different things. And it is, oh man, it is absolutely horrible. As a matter of fact, I had a doctor.
Traumatizing.
I went through this point whenever I was in graduate school where I was under just immense stress and a lot of things happening all at once. And, therefore, during that time, no libido whatsoever. Just, I mean, and it was just jacking with my head. And my physician actually recommended testosterone. See, that's the thing too. A lot of these doctors, if you're a young guy, you go in and they'll find that their levels might be a little low, won't really ask you so much about your lifestyle. How much are you drinking? What are you eating? What kind of sleep are you getting? Are you training? It's just, oh, you're stressed out and you don't want to do antidepressants or something like that. Well, maybe let's just try to fix your testosterone levels and see if then you can get it up. And it's just so quick to and it is. It's everybody looking for that quick, easy fix, and in the process, destroying themselves along the way.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, a lot of these doctors are making a lot of money prescribing
Yep.
it, and it's a quick fix. It's not getting to the root issue, and it's sad, but you know, all we can do is preach the message that there's different alternatives, there's different options, you know. And I will say I have a few friends in their 40s and 50s who are absolutely, they look like they're 30, they have six packs, they look amazing, and none of them have done testosterone. But it's a marathon, not a
That's
race.
right.
They've been building muscle for 30 years, working out consistently, eating healthy for 30 years. So it's if you want to achieve that physique in 3 months, then the shortcut is appealing. But again, there's no free lunch for anything in life. You got to put in the work. You got to, and you have to do your homework and think intelligently about the pros and cons, the consequences of different paths. So,
Well, okay, let's get back to Bobby for just a little bit because one of the things you were going to touch on is the event that you ended up getting to have with him. So I know he comes on your radar, he's on your feed and everything. I actually invited him to come on the podcast, but it's right in the thick of the
mm,
campaign. And so they're like, they did respond like, we would love to do something, but right now his schedule's just jammed. I completely knew that. And he's got and in a game like that, you got to if you can get on Rogan or something like that, you got to go take all the biggest swings you can. So I understood, but I would love to visit with him further at some point. But you end up, he comes on your feed, you start recognizing him and what he's doing, you get behind him, and then you guys hold an event. So tell me all about that.
yeah, so we, I partnered up with one of my best friends, and he has a long history as a political activist and donor, and he's actually been very influential. He's helped. Would usually support candidates on the right, like libertarian leaning. His big issue was
I think
anti-war.
is it's probably our mutual friend. If you don't want to call his name, I won't. Is it fellow East Texan?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I know
yeah.
who you're talking about. Yeah.
Of course, yeah, John.
Yep.
So he traditionally supported candidates that were on the anti-war right.
Mhm.
So and candidates that were also like had a more lackadaisical approach to the drug war and so like just against big government. But he fell in love with RFK, as did I, and we just really wanted to get in touch with him. So we wrote to his campaign. We're like, "Hey, we have an amazing network of donors who are falling in love with your message. A lot of them tend to be from the libertarian right, but we would love to throw a fundraiser for you because we feel aligned on so many different issues, from big pharma to war, military industrial complex, all these things. So they're like, cool, if you can, get a certain amount of pledges, we'll have the event. So we got to work and we were able to raise a couple $100,000, and he came through to the event, and it was just such a magical night. He was so cool. And he told us that he felt like a real deep connection with the people there in our event and with me and John. And that just is a compliment I'll never forget. The energy was so like powerful that day. And it was right after October 7th. So things were kind of heavy. And then he came, and it was just a magical event in the midst of like a lot of sadness and confusion. Um, and yeah, it was, as you said, to me, it represented a new type of politics where it's not about right or left. That that crap is of the past, man. It's it's outdated. It's about character, it's about love, and it's about these basic foundational policies, or these principles of compassion, love, nutrition, health, things like that.
Well,
So
that's one of the amazing things. It's like, and again, I don't want this to sound pro one or other because I don't want to make this a political podcast, but it is so bizarre that on one side of the aisle, you have these glimpses of unification. I mean, with Tulsi Gabbard, with Bobby Kennedy coming under the most unlikely of unifiers, the Trump campaign. That's just like so bizarre. And one of the things I always tell people, because I've played in the political world for so many years, that when it comes to Trump, if you because people can't figure out what happened in the Republican Party, I'm like, hey, look, you got to understand something. Donald Trump was an independent that just put on the Republican badge to become the president. That's how he did it. He was unlike any other. And now, and now the way the game's played, you're right. I think a lot of people don't know what they are, but there's something coalescing. And I don't even say the Trump campaign or make it, because then listeners will be like, oh my God, this guy's been all pro-Trump. I'm not trying to do that, but I'm just saying on that side, there's weird bedfellows coming together because they're looking at different issues. They're open-minded enough to say, hey, it doesn't have to just be this thing. It doesn't have to just be low taxes, guns, and pro-life or whatever. We can squeeze, health and wellness into this national conversation. We can squeeze in some of these things that more libertarian views. Let's at least get my idea at the table instead of trying to be this purist that either you're all in with all these check boxes or you don't even have a place at the table to discuss these things. And it's so bizarre watching. Never in a million years did I think you would have somebody like in pop culture, have somebody like Joe Rogan, then Tulsi Gabbard, then Bobby Kennedy, all coalesce under the banner of the Trump campaign. Yeah. It's like, if you told me that even 5 years ago, but you're nuts. No way.
Yeah.
And here we are.
It's pretty unprecedented. It's pretty wild. But then you have strange bedfellows on the other side. You have Dick Cheney endorsing the other side, and people are like, wow, look at this. See, the Republicans aren't united. I'm like, I mean, if you want to claim one of the greatest war criminals of the last 50 years, that's cool. It's a weird flex, but okay.
A weird flex. Well, and not only that, man, but if you look at, like you mentioned, that things are changing. I do think we're entering a new dawn of politics. And it's like, okay, look at who was not at the Republican National Convention. No Romney, no Cheney, no Bushes, none of the so-called party bosses, establishment, however you want to term that. And where are they going? They're going to the people who seem to be very much in favor of keeping the system, keeping things status quo with a little bit left-leaning. I guarantee you, no shrinking of government. That's one of the problems I have with both sides, is nobody talks about getting the government less involved in your life. It's all about how can we do more for you, which is, and that's both sides are guilty of that. But man, it's like watching whenever Liz Cheney did her thing and then her dad, I'm like, to me, you're not endorsing Harris so much as you're endorsing the established system that has really kind of failed us all at this point. You've taken the greatest nation on earth and in so many ways just brought it to this weird atomatized thing that we don't even recognize anymore. And so, anybody that's in favor of, and I'm not anarchist or anything like that, but at the same time, like if you're for more of what got us here, man, I'm sorry, I'm out.
Yeah, status quo. I mean, and it's these institutions that are really controlling the government at the end of the day. It's the military industrial complex, the central banking system, and big pharma.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's who's really calling the shots. And to me, you know, one party, especially now, seems to really defend those interests very. Both parties do, but one, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. I hear you. Well, and the thing is too, so yeah, I'm talking about the big pharma. And dude, by the way, I used to never be a guy that would say stuff like big pharma, big oil, big, these nefarious forces of capitalism out there until we went through the pandemic. And what I saw was just unreasonable behavior. It wasn't so much, it was, because I'm not one to jump to point the finger and call somebody nefarious and say the only reason why you're against this is because it lines your pockets or something like that. I try my best not to go there. And even if I do, I don't come out, I'm not dogmatic about it. But when I saw just the unreasonable behavior, for example, the way Bobby Kennedy was treated. And by the way, I don't know if I'm sure you saw his congressional hearing here recently. The dude, he said, everybody wants to call him anti-vax. And he said, I have all my vaccines, except for COVID. That's the only one. I've done the whole schedule. He's not anti-vax. And it's like when you see these people, what really scared me, man, was watching so many Americans just fall in line blindly without doing. And again, it's not do your own research and then reading a headline and think you're an expert on, all these different things. That's not what I'm saying. But the people that were just willing to just listen to a headline given by the right person and go, oh, it must be right. And they're in my tribe. So everything else must be wrong. That was really a trip to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what troubles me is the lack of spiritual discernment when someone could listen to Bill Gates and go, "Okay, that's someone I'm going to listen to. This guy sounds like when I look at Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci, I could tell they really have my best interests at heart." Like that level of spiritual blindness, this is kind of concerning. Like if they can be convinced of that, what else can they be convinced of? But I always get to the root issue of spirituality. It's, in my opinion, it's all spiritual warfare.
Yep.
And yeah, it is what it is. I don't know if your audience is down with this stuff, but I'm fascinated by these topics, and I think that's the deeper root of everything going on, and the problem and the solutions. So.
Well, dude, I mean, look, if you're going to listen to the Jason Wright show or the Healthy CEO podcast, my audience knows that I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, and those who are on board like it, and others they'll listen to me because they know that. One of the things I try not to beat anybody over the head with it, but I always wear my faith on my sleeve. And I think you're right. It's not against flesh and blood that we fight. And that's why we have to be as wise as serpents and gentle as doves. I think that's one of the things that you and I really align on is that we're not out there trying, it's one of the reasons why back in the day, dude, I used to have, back before there were podcasts, I had an internet radio show. There was such a thing, but you had to show up and stream the show. So you can imagine if I had 50 listeners at one time, it was a big deal. And it was total politics. It was total political commentary. Back before there was a Ben Shapiro, back before there was any of that, I was doing this. And I got to the point where I was like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to get my listenership through divisiveness. What I want to do is try to be an encourager. And that's why, it goes back to where this all started about being healthy and all this. It creates a happier community and everything. The Jason Wright Show, where the motto is to improve always in all ways. It's a totally selfish endeavor. I firmly believe that if I'm the best version of myself, meaning healthy, both spiritually, physically, mentally, all of it. And hopefully that inspires somebody else to want to try to take control of their health, their mental well-being, and all these different things, and have good, strong relationships and practice that iron sharpening iron like you and I do whenever we get to talk. If they'll do that, then that will spread. And then everybody's just feeling too good and healthy and joyful to be at each other's throat. That, at least that's my naive,
Yeah.
maybe view of this. But the one thing I can control is Jason Wright. And I'm always going to do that to the best of my ability. I'm going to fail sometimes, but I'm going to try to show up, best version of myself, and let that spread to this audience,
Yeah.
you, and everybody else around me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing we could do is embody these virtues to the best of our ability. And really, like, we could tell people things all day, but when we embody them, it it's like a light. It's infectious.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it all starts with one person doing the right thing,
Yep.
and then that spreads. I mean, look at even with COVID, there were certain people who took a stand bravely, and it spread, like businesses that stood up, the Canadian trucker, people just saying no, and with love in their heart, not with violence, just saying no. This is how I choose to live, and that's an unstoppable force when people align with love and truth.
100% agree. You know, it's like, what was it? Gandhi that said, be the change you want to see in the world. And as overused as that quote has been, to me, it's one of the most powerful ones that stick with me. And I'll tell you, I try to promote health and wellness, right? So therefore I've got to walk the walk, talk the talk, and, you know, got to have the physical being. I try to keep myself in good shape, not just for vanity reasons, but because I just met with a guy yesterday that he said, man, you said, you know, you're really looking great or whatever. I said, well, you know, I'm health and wellness is my thing. I just co-founded this company and it's what I love. And you got to practice what you preach. And he said, and we talked about that a little bit, because I'll tell you, I'm going to sound so judgmental. I'm going to probably get some comments for this, but I'll tell you right now, James, one of my hardest things when we're talking about preaching or spirituality or whatever, I have a hard time listening to a really fat preacher. I do. It's
More,
I just, because to me that says there's something with regard to one of the fruit of the spirits, which is self-control, that you are lacking. Yeah, there's something in there that, and again, I know it's judgmental on its but I have tried. It's kind of like a Kenneth Copeland or somebody that lives in these giant man.
I couldn't agree more, man. Yeah.
When that's not practicing what you preached, in my opinion. And I don't know, it just, to me, it loses credibility.
Gluttony is the most laughed at, ignored sin in Christianity.
Yep.
It's also probably the most common. I mean, Christians in America are the most obese group, I believe, the most obese demographic. And the early Christians were very clear about gluttony. And honestly, this is why food is such an important thing in the history of the church, even in Judaism, all these things. The early Christians considered also compassion for animals to be very important. And the way our factory farming system works in the United States is, I mean, could you really see Jesus going into a slaughterhouse and approving of the condition these animals are, I mean, viciously slaughtered in front of their family? So as Christians, we should be thinking about that, whether meat eater or not. Source your meat from, either have a friend who hunts, go hunting yourself, or try and support some farm that somewhat treats these animals with somewhat compassionately. I think we're so divorced from our food, and gluttony is just absolutely taken over, where we eat animals or just absolutely splurge on any kind of food with no regard for where it came from, and if this is honoring God with the way we eat. Sorry for ranting there, but it's something I care a lot about.
Hey, brother, bring it. You know, one of the things that I try to do now, Ben Greenfield kind of alerted me to this, is whenever, like generally during the day, like when I leave here in a little while, I'll go home and I'll have my protein shake for lunch. And I used to, and I still do it sometimes. I'm not going to say that I perfect this, but it used to be every single time I would have my protein shake and I would either listen to a podcast or something to that effect, catch up on emails. But now I try to truly sit in gratitude and savor my food. Just enjoy the blessing that I didn't have to go out and travel across the Serengeti with risk of death and starvation to gather
Yeah.
this food. That it's so we have this bountiful blessing, and then it causes me to go a step deeper. I'm grateful for my health, and that's one of the things right now,
Yeah.
man. And at this point in my life, I feel like I'm probably healthier than I've ever been, and I don't say it braggadociously or that. I say it with just such gratitude. I mean, I say this all the time when I wake up. I'm like, thank God I get to be healthy because I see so many people close to me, family members that are not, man, that are bedridden or just mentally depressed. And I look at them, they're inflamed and they're overweight. And it's like, I don't look at them in disgust. I look at them with sympathy and go, I wish so badly you could make a few of these choices. Like again, concentrating on what you're putting in your body, be grateful for the quality that you get to put into your body. Like your whole company is built around organic products. Whenever I get to whenever I start to think about my food more, all of a sudden the little extra expense that eating organic comes with, it pales in comparison to the benefit that I get for eating good, clean food. And
Mm,
so yeah, man, I could rant about that forever because you're right. We just take so much for like we'll take better
yeah.
care of our cars than we take of our
Mhm.
bodies. And that's to me,
Yeah.
that's got to change.
Yeah. The Apostle John said, I wish you above all things that you may have good health and prosper.
Yeah.
So above all things,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a big deal. So it's a big deal for all spiritual seekers, and it's very difficult to operate effectively in the world and help others and accomplish your mission when you feel like crap and you're sick or you have cancer or you have disease. Not only that, if someone in your family has cancer, how difficult does that make your life for you? Like, think of the ripple effects of one person getting sick. How many people that affects, how much mental energy that drains, how much pain and suffering.
Dude, oh my gosh. Yeah, trigger warning. We have a family member right now that I don't think will even knows that this podcast exists. So I think we're in good shape. That we're going through that right now, James. It's
Mm,
this family member is completely due to a lifetime of horrible decisions about their health and their lifestyle, are now completely dependent, unable to take care of themselves, and having to rely on the rest of the family to come to their rescue. And it's causing major rifts through the family because you've got a 79-year-old grandmother that is now having to not pay attention to the grandchildren and enjoy her life because one of her children has lived this life that has led to this place of bad health and dependency. And it's causing just ripples. And I think the same thing. I had a family member, another one, tell me not too long ago, because they were trying to take care of themselves for another family member saying, well, I don't sleep. I don't sleep. I don't sleep. I want to stay awake in case something happens to this other person in question. I'm like, okay, so you think it would be better for you to die sooner by not getting good quality sleep? You think that that makes more sense as long as right now, while you're here, being able to wake up and help them if they need it. It's just these stupid things that people don't stop to think about. And again, I say these stupid things. So many people, they're not stupid, they're not dumb, they're ignorant to what it takes for good health. But you're right, man. We are living that in my family right now due to the bad decisions and unwillingness of certain family members to not take care of themselves. Then it puts a burden on everybody else that didn't
yeah.
have to be there to begin with.
Yeah, the ripple effects are crazy. How much stress and anxiety, and it could also cause sickness in other people
Oh yeah.
because the stress causes
Oh yeah.
sickness.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of the main strategies of the enemy is to get someone sick through bad habits, and then sit back and watch the chaos ensue.
Yep. Yep. All right. So one of the things I want to talk about too is because a lot of these bad habits, especially with nutrition, start at a very young age. I think bad food going in these little kids and screens in front of their
Mhm.
faces. I mean, it's just these poor kids are just doomed at such an early age. And I know that you guys, at least I've seen through Instagram and some other things, I have never talked to you about it. It looks like you've launched a new line of products directed for kiddos. Tell me about that. What's going on there?
You might be thinking of John's other company, Tropical Oasis. Our supplements are mostly designed for
Well, there was something
adults.
I thought I saw you on like it on Logan Paul's show or something that you were talking.
Oh, so yeah, I was Logan Paul released and Mr. Beast and KSI, some of the biggest influencers in the world,
Yeah,
released a product called Lunchly,
there we go.
which is it's like a packed lunch designed for kids.
Yeah.
And you know, these guys are loaded. Mr. Beast is worth over $500 million. So you think
Crazy.
they could cut a little margin and release a clean, healthy, nutritious product, but it's loaded with corn syrup and different seed oils and what else did it have? I gotta look at my notes, but yeah, it's got a bunch of not so great stuff.
Oh,
So I made a video about how it's unfortunate that these influencers who influence so many people who have all the money in the world can't just release a clean product. Why do they have to include this crap in there and then they market it to kids? It's an integrity problem.
okay.
You know, I would venture, well, I don't actually know. Maybe they don't know what they're doing, but they should know. If you're putting your name behind a product, look at what's in it.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so I had that wrong because I just glanced at it and I thought, to be honest with you, it just kind of popped up. I was like, oh man, I can't wait to talk to James about that. I thought you were
Oh,
launching something for kids.
hey, maybe it's an opportunity, yeah, to make something a little cleaner.
Well, maybe we should do that. We'll get John and we'll put our heads together
Yeah.
because let me tell you something, dude. It is one of these things that I it makes me sad. All these kids that are on ADHD medication. Again, I'm not telling parents, don't get mad at me. Don't write me a letter saying you don't understand my kid. Maybe, but there are so many more diagnoses of kids with ADHD these days. They're insulin resistant, and a lot of you look at what these poor young kids are eating, and it's like you're giving your kid a pack of cigarettes. It's like it's just terrible, and so I
Mhm.
think that that's something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, big time. I mean, the nutrition for children, it shapes their development in a massive way, the development of their brain and body. So yeah, it's a very important area that needs to be addressed.
Let me ask you this: I haven't looked into much of this. So you and I are more of a libertarian bent, and we were talking about Bobby Kennedy. And so being more libertarian, I know I'll speak for myself. Whenever I hear of high regulation, I kind of break out in hives. I don't
Mhm.
like restrictions coming from government. I'm a very much a live and let live kind of guy. So either from what you talked to Bobby about or just kind of your personal beliefs, how do we take control of this big industrial food complex? And, because I remember back in the day, remember when Michael Bloomberg was like, limiting the big gulps in New York and no salt on the tables. And I remember thinking to myself, what the hell, dude? You're just creating a nanny state. I'm not saying I want to do that. I'm not saying I endorse that sort of thing. However, now I will say I get it more that there is a not that correlation is equal to it causes causation, but nevertheless there's a correlation between all these horrible things we're eating and the strain being put on the healthcare system. So I can see where policy does have to come into play. What do you think some of the remedies are for combating the big industrial food complex and all this crap
Yeah.
that our fellow Americans are cramming in their mouth?
Well, I could think of an example like for big pharma, for instance, has liability shields where they can't be sued. So you can poison people and then there's no recourse. So I think the one of the solutions is just recourse where some of the ingredients that have been used have been shown to cause great damage. And if we're able to do class action lawsuits and sue the crap out of some of these companies or individuals responsible, that could potentially reverse the trend in some ways where there's okay, you can't just sell poison to people. There's consequences for this. But I agree with you. I don't like overregulation. it's a very interesting topic, but I think we could look to some country, Italy. They have quite a bit of regulation, but their food is extremely clean.
Mhm.
Um, it is one area, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that we need to set such strict standards, but yeah, I don't really get into the policy aspect as much. I'm not a policy expert in terms of how you implement these things, but yeah, it's a good question.
I think one of the things that's missing, and this is what just drives me crazy, dude. Whenever this glorification of gluttony through saying that, the whole fat shaming deal, like if you're even physicians are scared now to have somebody come in and you say, hey, you're dealing with hypertension, you're obese, you've got to lose some weight, you've got to get under control. Well, that's considered shaming. And it's like, no, that's not shaming. That's just truth. And this whole idea of blurring truth with shame, that's what frustrates me, man. And I guess I don't know what I would like to see is like in the healthcare system. I'm hoping if I could wave a wand, I would say if people could be incentivized through like wearables, I think, more biometric. Like if you maintain a certain HRV or VO2 max or BMI, I hate BMI as a measurement. I think it's a crappy measurement because it doesn't take into account guys like you and I that train and are gonna. But nevertheless, it's pretty universally accepted. But there's some sort of metric that says, hey, if you maintain these certain metrics,
Yeah,
then you get tax incentives. You
I love
you
it.
get some sort
Yeah,
of a wearable. You get your Apple Watch is like it's not just for the Silver Sneakers program, which is Medicare. You can be young and you can have a free Apple Watch if you maintain these metrics, and it's always checking in. I think we broaden. Now, granted, this is going to sound self-serving since both you and I both own supplement companies, but if we, but it would have to meet certain standards to where you could have more insurance reimbursement or HSA, which I will say this, the HSA, the health savings accounts covering supplementation has gotten broader. So that's good. But we actually put these things like um, HRV monitors, wearables, supplementation. We throw those into the the system and then educate people and encourage them better blood tests. Like what if you got um there's some kind of a scoring system where you got detailed blood work every single year based on your biometric data, and there was some, what gets incentivized is what's going to get managed, right? What gets measured gets managed. And so I think if we just start doing more of that, I think it would be much more beneficial. And again, that goes back to this whole conversation with Bobby Kennedy coming to the national stage with his ideas about health and wellness. Is like, and I won't call any of them out because people say, no, you don't understand. That's the most important issue of the day. That's all we need to worry about. But it seems like the topics that get most of the attention and get people all exercised and say that this is why this person or this person should be the president of the United States and this person or this person should be the majority in Congress. It's not that they're not important, but when we don't even talk about health care, which by the way, in America is an oxymoron because we are so designed for sick care versus actual health care, then I don't know, man. It really kind of pisses me off. I wish that we would get more just educating people and showing them again, because selfishly, then it means that whenever James and I are chilling in the ATEX or something like that, we come up across somebody and they're probably going to be happier because they're healthier. That would be awesome.
yeah. Now that yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I was kind of blanking on my last answer, but focusing on the solution and not the problem is 100% the way. And incentivizing health, incentivizing companies that are doing the right thing. I even think we could incentivize people who, our lawns are just a waste of space. If you incentivize people to grow their own food on their lawns, um, incentivizing if someone is very obese, I mean, you could have incentives if they're able to hit certain health metrics by the end of the year, they could get some tax benefits or whatever. But right now, the opposite is incentivized, and it's just led to such an unhealthy society. We need to really promote healthy practices. I think gym memberships or something that could also be incentivized by the government. Um, yeah,
Well, it's crazy because, like I mentioned, they've got, which I think this is awesome. I love the Silver Sneakers program. For those of you who don't know, if you got a loved one that's over 65 and they're on Medicare, tell them to check out the Silver Sneakers program. It'll cover things like, I don't know if the Apple Watch is covered, but I found it covers a Peloton membership, or maybe even part of the purchase of a Peloton. There's all these different things it covers. It does cover some gym memberships. I'm like, that's freaking awesome. That was something I didn't know about our Medicare program. However, why not keep young people healthy? I mean, if we're going to, like, Scott Galloway talks about this a lot of times, we are holding young people back because we when they start making money, we tax them. It's hard for them to build wealth at a young age. We're everything is geared towards keeping older, richer people rich, and then all of a
yeah,
sudden we focus. And I want my elderly loved ones to have all these benefits, but I'd love to figure out a way to start incentivizing young people to stay healthy, make better decisions, and then get this whole narrative out of the public lexicon that if it's noted that you're overweight and that you're bumping up against type 2 diabetes your due to your numbers on your glucose levels, then that's not shaming you. That's just trying to save you and loving you. And that's what we want, is a healthy, productive, happy population. So I'm hoping that with Bobby and again, just the rise of people like Peter Attia. I mean, it's so crazy. Gus, my business partner, and I, we go back and forth. I'll say something about Peter Attia, and he's like, well, no, Peter Attia just gets too in the weeds and he gets too technical with his podcast, and Outlive, the book, was a little too technical. I'm like, dude, I'm like, Gus, no, I don't agree, man. People, even if they don't understand everything Peter Attia is saying, they're still willing to listen. People, I think, are craving, those of us who love to take advantage of the agency we have, they're willing to listen, even if they don't know everything about, LDL and VO2 max and, all these different things, mitochondria health. They may not know this, but they'll listen enough through osmosis. They'll start to figure these things out. And I'm encouraged to see, like, who would have ever thought a neuroscientist like Andrew Huberman would become one of the most popular podcasters in America, in the world, I guess. I mean, people are craving knowledge. And so I think we just have to keep pushing out there. And, hopefully you and I are doing our little part in both of our companies and on shows like this to encourage people to make good decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty cool, the change in the culture, but it's been driven by necessity,
Mm-hmm.
Or like I said, the effects of someone being sick, how it has a ripple effect. It also has a positive ripple effect. I think the reason so many people are interested in this is because someone they love has gotten sick or passed away, or they've had periods in their life where they felt like absolute garbage, self-induced. Um, so they start looking for answers, and millions of people have woken up because of that. So yeah, it's exciting times. Very exciting.
For sure. And you touched on something there that is one of the things that excites me whenever I have somebody that, and I'm by no means an expert, one of the things that the old saying that the further you are away from shore, the deeper the water is. The more I learn, the more I realize I have to learn. And the more I learn, the more how little I actually know. I'm alerted to how little I know. So I'm not an expert, but what I do love to encourage people and tell them is that you have so much more agency over your health than you thought. Cancer doesn't have to be just this bad luck or Alzheimer's or cognitive decline. Yes, it could absolutely happen. There's nothing to just completely eliminate those things, but you can hedge against so many of these debilitating diseases and just your body's decay. You have so much more power than what you realize. And our grandparents, I mean, God bless them, whether they're making good or bad decisions or not, they pretty much just thought good or bad health, blood pressure medicine, or whether they weren't going to have to take it, or Alzheimer's or heart attacks. They just thought I hope I don't get cancer. I hope I don't get these things. But we're living in an age now where so much of this stuff can at least be hedged against in ways that we never thought possible. And that's what excites me is to tell people, hey, you don't have to just think that you're walking through this fun house of life and maybe the cancer will jump out at you or something like that. You can
Yeah,
you
right.
can actually do some things to hedge against this. And when you learn to pull those levers, then it's pretty exciting. You want to pull them more and you want to dial it in. So that's what I like to
Yeah.
encourage people with.
Yeah, it's interesting speaking with my parents and just other people. It was, I remember with my grandparents, it was kind of just considered to be an act of God.
Yep.
I mean, everything is an act of God in a sense, but that it was just like the lottery. You know, either you get cancer, you don't. Your own actions like don't really have much to do with it. So it's kind of a disempowering narrative, and that's really shifted in recent times. So that's encouraging.
100%. And one of the things that I'll end with, so I had to go to get my first colonoscopy. Like I said, I'm 49, I'm about to turn 50. And it was one of the funniest things whenever I'm I'm at the doctor and they're getting me ready, and the nurse comes in and starts asking me about medications. Blood pressure medicine? No, 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 no. And I take zero medications. And and she's like, "Well, do you ever go to the doctor?" I said, "Yeah, I go once a year for sure. I get my blood work done every year." And it was like I had three heads. I mean, this and I again, I don't think I should be the exception. I should be the rule. The exception should be somebody coming in saying that they are taking, statins or whatever. But instead, I'm the exception. Someone that comes in, I don't take any medications. I haven't been sick. And that's the thing too, dude. Guys that are, you're younger than me, but guys that are my age, your age, and even younger that are on blood pressure medicine, and so I'm like, come on, man. It's like it just hurts my heart. And I just hope that we can help those folks realize there is another way.
Yeah.
So
Amen. Yeah.
well,
Absolutely.
well, James, this has been fun, dude. Anything else?
Yeah.
Tell people where they can find you, follow you, and talk a little bit about organic muscle again, why, where people can find the products, what they can find. I love your products. I mean,
Thank you.
so tell people about them.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm the CEO of Organic Muscle. It's something I care about deeply. We make organic certified, healthy, clean, organic workout supplements. We're best known for our pre workout. I started the company after I almost had a heart attack taking, I call them crackhead pre workouts. Pre workout made me very sick and jittery and anxious, and I almost called 911 on myself. But it was the catalyst to start a company that makes a pre workout that's actually nutritious and gives you energy and stamina. So now that's got like 5,000 reviews on Amazon. Very popular product. We also have protein powder, Tonkat Ali for a natural way to boost your testosterone, and a host of other supplements. But yeah, we're just trying to do it. We're just trying to do things the right way. Take the cleanest ingredients we could possibly source and put them together in appropriate dosages. So yeah, organicmuscle.com. You could find me. I'm also starting a podcast with my best friend called The Jesus Way about the early Christian movement, the first 100 years of Christianity. It's a history podcast, but obviously there's a lot of spirituality involved. We've just been so inspired by the earliest generation of Christians, and their history has really been kind of erased and overshadowed even by the church. So if you want to learn how to follow Jesus, wouldn't you look to the first generation of people who followed him? So it's going to be really cool. Yeah, that's coming soon. So keep an eye out for that.
Dude, I'm excited about that. So I will definitely follow that. And if you ever want me to be a part of the conversation, dude, just hit me. I
Yeah,
would love to. That would be exciting and fun. And I will say this, folks.
it'll be fun.
One of the reasons why I like going to places like natural grocers to shop, I feel like for the most part, more times than not, whatever I pick up off the shelf is going to be at least somewhat. There was an effort made to be in natural grocers, right? It's going to be decent stuff. That's or Thrive or one of those places, kind of an ecosystem that's known for clean food. That's what I like about Organic Muscle. No matter what I order from you guys, I know that a lot of thought has been put into it being healthy, clean, and that. And whenever there's so much junk out there, this being in this space, it's one of the things I tell people about our business is that we wanted to make sure if you're going to dive into this ocean of nutraceuticals, supplementation, and all this stuff, there's some just absolute garbage out there. So the only way you can really fight to make a difference is to really, really maintain good quality, high standards. And I know at Organic Muscle, you guys do that. Like you mentioned, you kind of touched on your personal story, which we talked about a while back when you were on my show, which I think, so there's a story there as to why you created the product. So folks, I cannot more highly endorse Organic Muscle and all their products, not just
Thank
because
you.
James is my friend. So there you go.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been great chatting. We have so much in common, and it's always a good time.
Well, I appreciate it, James. And I guess we'll talk soon, brother. Hey, folks, it's Jason Wright, the Healthy CEO. He's James Benefico, another Healthy CEO. Thanks so much for listening. Here's to your health.
The content provided in this podcast, The Healthy CEO, is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The opinions expressed by our hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Healthy CEO. Any information provided by our hosts or guests, including any physicians who may appear on the podcast, is solely for informational purposes and does not create any doctor-patient relationship. Listeners are advised to consult with their healthcare providers before making any changes to their health routines. The Healthy CEO and its affiliates assume no responsibility or liability for any consequence resulting directly or indirectly from any action or inaction you take based on the information provided in this podcast.